help break down this very big and quite dramatic, actually, first day in court, let's go to our legal panel. Trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris and trial attorney Mercedes Colwin. Great to have you both here. You know, this is, first of all, what do you think of the defense's argument, which is you're just looking for somebody to blame here, and it's not my client?
Why? But why take the societal issue? This is you go in and just say she didn't know that her son, who she loved so dearly, was capable of doing this. She didn't buy the gun. She didn't pull the trigger. She wasn't there on that day of the school. Go down that path, but to quote Taylor Swift and to say this is a societal problem and don't let my client be scapegoated, it's not. It's going to fall flat. I think you kind of heard a few gasps in the galley when she actually quoted Taylor Swift. Not a smooth move.
Especially, Misty, because there's so much ample evidence, including text messages, that show Ethan was not only in terrible state psychologically, but he was telling his mother.
Absolutely. Those messages are going to be very central to the argument. Messages to his mother that say, I'm seeing the demon again. Can you please answer my text? Messages about buying bullets and looking at bullets online, and his mother responding when he's caught at school. You need to hide that a little better next time. All of this is being put together, and we heard it in the prosecution's narrative, that she was willfully disregarding this risk. It was very clear that he had mental health issues, especially around this time. It was very clear that he had an obsession with guns, and she failed to intervene. So I agree with Mercedes' brilliant points, because there's really big legal arguments to make where you don't have to fall flat with that gimmicky Taylor Swift song and minimizing the horrors of that day. Focus on the foreseeability element, focus on the causation element, and say that that's the prosecution's burden.
It's interesting that we're hearing already mother turn against father. I mean, her attorneys are definitely like, it wasn't her that bought the gun. In other words, it was him, her husband, who's about to go on trial in about a month and a half. Right.
You can see that is going to be the defense. You can see the strict delineation between the two. That was very powerful, because if you are the gun owner, you're the one who purchased the gun, where are your safety locks? Why isn't it in a safe? Why don't you at least restrict the access to that gun? As a gun owner, if you're responsible, those are things that you're legally required to do.
Well, he was too young legally to have the gun, and yet there's an Instagram post from Jennifer saying mom and son day out testing his new Christmas present, showing a picture of them at the gun range.
And this is exactly how the prosecution's going to get around this defense argument, or attempt to do so, because the defense argument for Jennifer is she had nothing to do with buying the gun. We heard testimony about that today. Pretty lock solid. She was not there. James has another issue because he bought a gun on behalf of someone else, which is illegal. So we see the separate trials, but prosecution is going to use this to say whether or not she purchased the gun doesn't matter. It's her knowledge about his use, access, and obsession with guns that was the thing that would make her aware that he was dangerous and that she should have intervened.
In the meantime, she is apparently going to call her own son to take the stand in her own trial.
He actually had made a very compelling statement during sentencing. He made it clear to the judge, Your Honor, this had nothing to do with my parents. They had no idea I was going to do this. I did this alone. So already he's had this compelling data out there, that statement. And one of the things, and we talked about this before, great points that Misty was raising, one of the challenges are going to be the lawyers don't want him to testify. They don't want Ethan to testify. There will be an appeal. Obviously, it will be appealed for various grounds. But if you take that testimony, he's never testified, and things that could certainly compromise the integrity of the appeal later on. So it is a slippery slope. Yes, he might want to try to save his mother, but certainly the lawyers don't want him to come forward and testify.
Speaking of testifying, was anybody else shocked that out the gate opening statements, defense committed Jennifer Crumbley to taking the stand?
Yeah.
She will testify. Usually a decision defense attorneys hold on to.
I mean, doesn't she have to?
Strategically, the jury really needs to hear from her.
How do you argue I was a good mom and I didn't know my son was going to commit mass murder with a weapon that we bought him and celebrated buying him with him, you know, and even that morning were summoned to the school. I mean, because that's the other thing. They were summoned to the school that morning.
Right.
The school said, take him home. He's clearly having mental health issues. They not only refused to take him home, they didn't tell the school, oh, by the way, 4 days ago, we bought him a gun.
And that gun looks just like the gun that he drew in this picture.
Right.
But interestingly enough, in defense opening statement today, they have a different version of that incident. They say that during that meeting, the counselor said he's okay to go back to class. So there's a factual dispute about what happened at that meeting that I expect to be hashed out in the trial.
Well, I think when it becomes to he said, she said, credibility will definitely be the issue, so they say.
Absolutely.
Misty, Mercedes, great to have you here. Thank you
Great to
so
be here.
much. All right,
Thanks.
coming up, the spotlight is shifting in the Georgia 2020 election interference case from former President Donald Trump to the defendant to the person prosecuting the case. Could allegations of a secret affair upend the whole thing? Next.